Good afternoon, and welcome to the OC Forum's The Future of program series. My name is Kate Klimo, and I have the privilege to serve as the new president of OC Forum. During our 30th anniversary year, our plan was to invite leaders and visionaries to share their insights into the future. Then COVID changed the future overnight. Without hesitation, the OC Forum offered our first virtual program on Orange County's response to the coronavirus that reached thousands of viewers who were hungry for information. From then on, the OC Forum board worked tirelessly in serving up virtual programs focusing on the future of the economy, mental health, race relations, transportation, education, esports, affirmative action, philanthropy, and even Orange County itself. Perhaps more than ever, we are reminded of the importance of OC Forum's mission to host civil conversations and propose solutions around complex issues that affect us all. Today, we will introduce you to several visionaries who are shaping the future for people in the county and worldwide. As a nonprofit that has historically relied on contributions from in-person events to help fund its mission, the OC Forum has seen people and institutions in this county step up and offer their support through sponsorship. I would also argue that our amazing and diverse board of directors are among the most engaged on the planet. Now we would simply not be able to carry forth the mission of OC Forum without your contributions. Thank you. To all of our viewers, supporters, and sponsors. While we face one hurdle, roadblock, and pile of lemons after another, we have not forgotten to celebrate each other. We hope you enjoy today's program as we continue to celebrate the 30th anniversary of your OC Forum. Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the conversation.
At UCI, we believe in the infinitely curious. We believe in the courageous of thought, the ones willing to fail again and again, until one day they don't. When you have the courage to see things differently, to see opportunity where others see impossibility, amazing things will happen. At UCI, we stop at nothing to change the world, to save lives, and deliver the extraordinary.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the Future of Energy, presented by UCI and UCI Health and sponsored by Southern California Edison and SoCal Gas. I am Scott Kitcher, President and CEO of Sustain SoCal, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. In case you may not be aware, Sustain SoCal accelerates clean tech economic growth and sustainability initiatives in Southern California. All the organizations represented by our speakers today work with Sustain SoCal in collaboration toward sustainable energy. We have a jam-packed hour ahead of us with 6 energy leaders on the latest innovations in energy management and their views on the future of energy. Our 6 speakers represent the California Energy Commission, SoCalGas, Southern California Edison, California Independent System Operator, UC Irvine, and Consul. Our leadoff speaker today is David Hochschild, Chair of the California Energy Commission. David, it is a pleasure to have you here, and thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you.
Before we dig into our discussion questions related to the future of energy, would you be so kind as to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my background, I've been in renewable energy for about 20 years and worked in the solar industry, worked in local government for Willie Brown when he was mayor of San Francisco, and then got appointed to the Energy Commission by Governor Jerry Brown 8 years ago. I was the lead for renewables, worked very, very hard on getting us to 50%, now 100% clean energy into statute, and now as chair for the last 2.5 years under Governor Newsom, we're really focused on getting the state successfully to 100% clean energy on our grid, and then expanding the reach of that electric grid to include transportation and other services that have been powered by fossil fuels. So that transition is really at the heart of our climate strategy.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And we have about 10 or 15 minutes to cover the whole scope of things. So let's dig right into it, if you don't mind, David. I have first question is, the California Energy Commission is leading the state to 100% clean energy future. As chair of the CEC, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing with regard to building this ecosystem for our clean energy future?
Well, there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built. And so our state, we really need to get our boots on and build this stuff, starting with our top priority, which is transportation electrification. About half of our greenhouse gas emissions in California come from the transportation sector when you include the emissions from the dozen or so refineries we have in California. And what's exciting, there's a lot of momentum in the automotive industry now to transition to electric. Every major car company in the world is now developing electric models, and we are going to have well over 100 new models of electric vehicles in the North American market by the end of next year. Obviously, electric vehicles are also a major source of manufacturing jobs in California. We have 34 companies making electric vehicles. Our largest manufacturer in the whole state is Tesla, and EVs last year became our #1 export from California. So what we're focused on at the Energy Commission right now is building out this charging infrastructure. The governor has proposed in his May revised budget, which is hopefully going to get approved in the next month or two here, over $2 billion for the Energy Commission. We're putting half of that into electric vehicles and into electric vehicle charging infrastructure, which I think will have a lot of benefits, both in reducing emissions and in creating jobs, as well as supporting grid reliability. Electric vehicles actually have a really important role to play in helping integrate renewables and helping support the electric grid. So putting a lot of focus on that. Electric reliability has been another big focus. The state is doing a massive investment in energy storage, as well as renewable procurement now. We're going to see this year in 2021 a 10-fold increase in utility-owned energy storage coming onto the grid. This is just to support reliability, and we're doing a whole bunch of things, improving demand response and other features to help ensure that this clean grid is reliable.
So that you covered a lot in a very short period of time there. I mean, so regarding the transportation end of things, so what role do you see? I mean, we talked about batteries and infrastructure there. What role do you see for CNG and RNG?
So I think there is a role for CNG and RNG. The question is how big the swim lane will be for that. And so we are doing a study on that right now. I think the bottom line is that electrification, the sort of envelope of possibility for electrification, is rapidly expanding. So vehicles that, even a few years ago, people wouldn't have thought of a truck like the F-150 going electric. Well, that's coming out, next year. Ford is bringing that to market in the second quarter next year. Have a 300-mile range. It'll actually have bidirectional power. If you're going to a job site, it can actually replace a generator, and it can provide backup power for a house. The Chevy Silverado coming out. Of course, Tesla's got an electric semi. And what you're seeing in battery technology is a rapid reduction in cost. So lithium-ion batteries have come down in cost about 90% in the last decade, and there's a lot more cost reduction still to come, as well as an improvement in energy density. And so that's something we've been investing in with our R&D side. But I do think there's a role for a lot of different solutions here. But time will tell. Where the swim lanes actually end up being. For now, I think the momentum is very clearly on the side of electrification. Just that's where the investment is going. About 99% of the zero-emission vehicles on the road in California today are battery electric.
Yeah, you sort of kind of led into my next question, more about innovation, entrepreneurship. So the CEC invests in investments in programs that have been key to spurring innovators and entrepreneurs seeking to be part of a climate solution. What are some of the exciting technologies and innovations you see taking up the near and long term?
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. There are some great advances in battery technologies, small companies like Sepion and Coreshell making improvements to lithium-ion battery, as well as long duration storage like Form Energy. We have in our budget actually for this next year, $350 million just for long duration energy storage. And I think you're seeing, a lot of exciting developments there, as well as, I would say the field of flexible demand is really emerging. By that, I mean these smart features on our appliances that allow us to manipulate when the device operates. You're as simple as a delay button on your dishwasher to make sure that's running not during peak hours, to all of these other technologies that are coming online that offer a little bit of flexibility, because the model is changing from seeing demand, electric demand, as this fixed thing you need to ramp up generation to support, to some subset of that demand actually ends up being flexible. I'm thinking about electric vehicles, for example. We have almost 1 million electric vehicles that have been bought in the state of California. We're adding 650 a day. And for a large chunk of those vehicles, there is some flexibility about when they charge. And we actually want what I call an electric vehicle happy hour, where they're plugging into the grid when we have surplus solar energy during the day. So I think some of the most exciting technology is sort of optimizing that relationship. But we're seeing technology advances across the board, better lighting and higher efficiency solar panels, and improved technology in wind. I'd say probably the other technology I'm most excited about right now is offshore wind. So they've now gotten offshore wind turbines that are 15 megawatts in size. And to put that in perspective, when you drive around California and you look out the window and see those wind turbines spinning, those are typically 2 megawatt turbines. So a 15 megawatt turbine, one rotation of that turbine will power a house for a day, right? That's the scale that it's at. So we just struck this deal with the Biden administration 2 weeks ago, and we're going to be doing offshore wind over 20 miles off the coast, off Memorial Bay, and because that technology innovation really helps us a lot.
I read about that. That's very exciting news. Yeah. And we'd be happy to help, by the way, on that, David. We have quite a few wind technologies that are in our midst down here in Southern Cal. So I'd love to collaborate with you on that. So moving on to maybe the cost scenario of clean energy. There's always been a discussion about the cost of green energy technology. Can you talk about the price and how much cheaper it may become?
Oh, it's incredible. So when I got into the solar industry, which was 21 years ago, the price of solar was about 50 cents a kilowatt hour. It was by far the most expensive electric generation resource in the world, right? And now it's the cheapest. So solar, when you go to market in California and trying to procure power, solar is the lowest cost resource. We're approaching, for both solar and wind, I believe we're going to hit 1 cent a kilowatt hour. There are projects now in the 1.5 to 2 cent, but there's still a lot more cost reduction to come. And so that bodes really well. And that's why solar and wind are the fastest growing energy industries in the world by far. They're winning on cost. And people need to understand, we're not done with cost reduction. There's still a lot more efficiency gains and scale. And just getting bigger wind turbines being one example. So there's still a lot more innovation that can drive the cost still further.
Yep, I've noticed the same thing. It's quite exciting. And when you apply that to wind energy, there's obviously, we're seeing drastic reductions in prices there with the technology as well. So just a quick follow on in regard to the economics of energy, David. I think we're talking about the disadvantaged communities. What steps are being taken to ensure that the energy future is applicable to those communities as well? Yeah,
so great question. I would say that's sort of at the core of the climate strategy in California, is to be bold in the solutions that we're pushing. Go to 100% clean energy, go to 100% clean transportation, but focus on lifting up the communities that have been hardest hit as we proceed down that path. So for example, we fund about $150 million a year of clean energy research and development. We do these demonstration projects. We're doing almost 70% of those clean energy demonstration projects in low income and disadvantaged communities. We've been doing solar battery microgrids around the state. We've done 7 in tribal communities. And so this philosophy and approach, I think, is at the core of the Newsom administration. I really feel that as well as just going big generally on climate solutions, is a template for the country. These communities that have been hard hit, if you live near a freeway or near a port, your kids are breathing dirtier air. And really, we have to focus the solutions where those communities get the benefits first. It's the right thing to do. And we're charging full ahead on that strategy.
Great, that's wonderful to hear, David. I think maybe in kind of a wrap-up question here, and just you've hit on this a couple times in the questions that I've asked thus far, but you know, what role does renewable energy have in our grid generally, and how do you see that expanding into the future?
Well, alternative energy is the wrong word to use when you're describing renewables. Fossil is an alternative. So in California today, last year we got 63% of our electricity on the California grid came from carbon-free sources, and fossils going to be the alternative. So I think that's just the most important point to make. But as we expand out the reach of this clean electric grid, particularly into the transportation, the building sectors, I mean, there's enormous opportunity for our state, for new industries, new investment. I would highlight one thing in closing. We're doing a project that we're calling Lithium Valley, which is really to elevate sustainable lithium recovery in California. We funded $16 million of that research in the Salton Sea area. We have a massive reserve of lithium that is in a form that we can recover in a closed loop zero waste process. And the goal is really to build that out in a way that benefits that community, and where we can attract back to California things like battery manufacturing, because we have the largest end-use markets for energy storage and for electric vehicles in the country. About half of the electric vehicles sold in the US are sold here in California, and we have the raw material lithium. And so the goal is to scale that up and then bring back battery manufacturing. And I think that if we do that well, I think we will have a huge impact. And I really feel, you know, California's legacy here is incredible. You know, the solar industry globally was born here in our state. The wind industry globally was born here in our state. Electric vehicle industry was born here in our state. I mean, getting the job done and moving to 100% clean energy future, I think California can and will lead the way toward that future.
David, I don't think there's any question that California has been leading the way, and all that you said leads me to believe that we will continue to do so. So thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, we're taking a quick commercial break to hear a word from our sponsor. We'll be right back, so please stay tuned. Thank you. Welcome back to the OC Forum's The Future of Energy, presented by UCI and UCI Health and sponsored by Southern California Edison and SoCal Gas. We just heard from David Hochschild, who spoke to the challenges and opportunities in building a clean energy future for California. It is now my pleasure to welcome Neil Navin, Vice President of Clean Energy Innovations for SoCal Gas. Neil, I'm very much looking forward to diving into your view of the future of energy, but before we do so, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Hey, a pleasure to see you again, and a pleasure to be here. Yes, again, I'm Neil Navin. I'm the Vice President of Clean Energy Innovations for SoCalGas. I lead SoCalGas's comprehensive group that looks at clean energy projects, research and development, really anything that looks at decarbonizing our system. We serve California from Fresno down to the Mexican border. I joined SoCalGas about 8 years ago because I really had a passion for changing the energy infrastructure of California. We serve 22 million people, and we've done so for almost 150 years. I'm really excited to be here today to talk about hydrogen and our clean energy group.
Yeah, Neil, it's exciting. You know, it's looking at my history with SoCalGas. Sustain SoCal and SoCalGas engaged about 8 years ago as well. So it looks like we've been with the organization about the same amount of time. Obviously, you in a much deeper fashion. So let's dig into the questions, if you don't mind, Neil. I have one here. Let's start off with this one. It's quite broad, so do your best with it. The state of California has set an ambitious climate goal to be carbon neutral by 2045. As the nation's largest natural gas distribution utility, how does SoCalGas intend to shape the future of energy to help the state achieve this goal?
Thanks for the question. SoCalGas has really been at the front line of innovation and policy around climate and GHG. Really, the things that dictate the future of California, the U.S., and globally, really. We evolved again through our 150 years of history to advance ourselves as a clean, safe, and innovative energy company. We were the first to look at things like aerial methane mapping, to really look at the ability to react to our system. We were the first in the country to install things like smart meters to make sure that we understood how gas was being used and consumed. We were one of the first to deploy renewable natural gas, so natural gas from biological sources as a way of decarbonizing our system. And this year, we went through another bold transformation, another major milestone. We published our first sustainability strategy called Aspire 2045. Fundamentally, Aspire 2045 is our commitment to be net greenhouse gas neutral in our operations, but also in the energy that we deliver to our customers by 2045. It's a very bold effort. We're the largest we're the largest natural gas company in the nation to do that. It's fully supportive of California's 2045 net neutrality goal. And we are making very deliberate investments in proven technology, really to harness the collective power of our system, the pipes in the ground today that have already been paid for by the ratepayer, to deliver clean molecules and ultimately to have clean molecules supporting clean electrons. We're very excited about the collective power of natural gas, renewable natural gas, wind, solar, clean hydrogen, batteries, fuel cells, and carbon capture to drive down the state's greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, Aspire 45 is truly an industry leader. I mean, very impressive, and congratulations on that initiative. We at Sustain SoCal applaud you, and I hope we can be a part of it. Question number two, what is the digging into hydrogen here? What is the potential of hydrogen in helping to lead the energy transition?
Hydrogen is a strategic priority for SoCalGas. We see it as an energy carrier that can fundamentally decarbonize the California economy, not just electricity, but really the economy writ large. And it also is a vehicle for storing renewable energy. Ultimately, when you couple the power of solar and wind at scale, you have an opportunity to power the electric system, the demands of the state during the day, and then charge batteries, but also create things like green hydrogen, clean hydrogen, as a way of storing energy for days, for weeks, for months. And we see this as a real game changer, especially for those areas in the economy that are harder to electrify. Those areas like manufacturing, like industry, heavy transportation. California is the largest industrial and manufacturing state in the nation. A lot of people think about Hollywood when they think about California and Silicon Valley, but we don't think about the energy needs of our industry and manufacturing that create a lot of jobs. And we see this as a critical part and critical role that hydrogen can play in creating heat and sustainability and reliability and resiliency for the economy of Southern California.
And the storage you speak of with hydrogen, it's the notion that I've heard of power to gas. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So that's the principle of taking the vast amounts of solar and wind that we get on some days, really leveraging that to make sure we're not curtailing those power systems, using hydrolysis to create either hydrogen, so clean hydrogen, or creating synthetic methane, things like green CH4, as a way of having a carbon neutral fuel, either in hydrogen or methane. Mm-hmm. It's really an opportunity to maximize the use of our renewables and allow for storage over the long term.
Yeah. And then while we're on the subject, generally speaking, of hydrogen, do you want to just touch on HyDeal and what's happening there?
Yeah, HyDeal is a really exciting opportunity. HyDeal is a public-private partnership between the Green Hydrogen Coalition, LADWP, ourselves, Mitsubishi, a number of other partners, to look at standing up a green and clean energy economy and market in Southern California. Ultimately, the aim is to try to deliver hydrogen at $1.50 a kilogram. That seems to be a sweet spot where the value of hydrogen really starts to compete with other energy sources. It's a very ambitious plan. It's modeled after some work that's been done in Europe. We're proud to be part of it, and we're proud of the HyDeal process as a way of really illuminating the potential value of hydrogen for Los Angeles and Orange County and the region in general.
Yeah, it's very exciting stuff. Question number 3, and we're just going to kind of continue a little bit on the hydrogen path here, but somewhat different. What are some of the demonstration projects SoCalGas is focused on to bring hydrogen to fruition as a viable clean energy tool?
Well, we've got a vast portfolio of projects. I'll just highlight a few very quickly. One of them is H2 Hydrogen Home. That's a fully integrated solar hydrogen home that's all of the power and the cooking facilities in the home are going to be powered by hydrogen or a mixture of hydrogen and natural gas. We also have a technology called H2 Pure Comp, essentially a technology that unscrambles the egg. I like to say it picks the green M&Ms out of the M&M pile. So you could take hydrogen right out of a mixed stream, compress it, and use it in your Mirai. It's a really exciting technology out of the Netherlands. We also have an exciting project called H2 Silver Star. That's a project with Sunline Transit. And that project is looking at taking the already exciting hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicle fleet of buses that Sunline uses, and further decarbonizing the hydrogen they produce using renewable natural gas and a really innovative micro steam methane reforming technology to drive down both the cost, but also the carbon intensity of the hydrogen that's being produced. So to essentially further decarbonizing transit in the Coachella Valley.
Fantastic. So more broadly now, when you think about the future of global and state energy, how important will interconnection between the electric and gas grids be, and what role will RNG hydrogen play? And applying that directly, how does that apply to this upcoming summer's heat wave?
Well, I guess I'll take that in 2 parts. For this summer, I mean, clearly we've already seen the heat arrive. So I think for this summer, what's key is our ability to maximize the use of renewables, especially during the day. So during the heat of the day, when the sun is out, the wind is still blowing, we need to maximize the use of solar, wind, and charge batteries. In the evening, we need to have a reliable gas grid to back that up. So we're going to need that for some time to come. And that's going to be really important this summer, that we have the reliability and resiliency in the power system that is a coupling of renewables and natural gas. In the future, I think we're really looking at point sometime in the future and in the coming decades where we're going to continue to leverage solar, wind, batteries, but increasingly we're going to be relying on decarbonized molecules in the evening and at night to decarbonize the energy system using hydrogen, using renewable natural gas, green CH4. All of those things have the ability to really couple the clean molecules with the clean electrons. So we get the maximizing of our renewables fleet, both during the day and at night. And that's something that we see as being very important to California. It's something we also see globally, whether it's in Europe, Asia, or Australia. A larger and larger segment of the academic community, other studies are really demonstrating that renewables coupled with clean molecules is the fastest and best way to fully decarbonize not only the electric system, but the entirety of the economy, including industry, manufacturing, and heavy transportations. Those things that really create the clean jobs of tomorrow.
Yeah, agreed. It's sort of a holistic approach to solution at the outset here. Neil, thank you very much. So with that, Neil, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. I look forward to speaking with you soon and hope to be able to collaborate further with Sustain Southern California. Thanks again.
Well, yeah, thank you. Pleasure to have been here with you today.
Okay, everyone, don't go anywhere. We're only halfway through and have 2 more segments you won't want to miss. Please stay tuned.
By 2045, California will undergo a remarkable evolution to become 100% carbon neutral. The state will zero out the CO2 emissions that are a leading cause of climate change. Most of the changes will come from rethinking the way we produce and use electricity and the way we power transportation and buildings. Southern California Edison has analyzed a path forward, looking at the most energy-efficient, cost-effective route with the least disruptions to customers and to industry. Cleaning the energy supply is going to be key to reaching our goals. By 2045, 100% of the electricity we use will come from carbon-free sources. We are going to need a lot of energy storage. In order to time-shift solar and wind energy to use when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing. "50% of the single-family homes in the state will have solar panels that will contribute clean energy. By 2045, 75% of our vehicles will need to run on electricity. Battery-powered cars will drink off the clean power supply. Some trucks might need to use low-carbon fuels, such as biodiesel or hydrogen. 70% of homes and buildings will be all electric. Most families will save money, especially if they use electric cars, and use electric heat pump technologies for air conditioning and heating. The CO2 emissions that remain will need to be cleaned from the atmosphere, either through technical processes or through natural processes, such as the planting of new trees. Getting to carbon neutrality would be an extraordinary transformation for California in only 25 years, and will allow all Californians to participate in the fight against climate change. For more information and to read our report, visit edison.com/pathway2045.
Welcome back to the OC Forum's The Future of Energy, presented by UCI and UCI Health and sponsored by Southern California Edison and SoCal Gas. I'm Scott Kitcher, your moderator for today's discussion. We're now joined by another pillar in our energy community, Caroline Choi, Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs at Southern California Edison. Caroline, I'm very happy to chat with you today to learn about your view of the future of energy. Before we get to my list of questions, however, though, I would love to hear you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Scott, thank you. Great to be a part of this event. So I have been at Southern California Edison for almost 10 years. It'll be 10 years in January of 2022. And before that, I was at another utility in the East Coast. So I'm actually originally from the East Coast. What drew me to California was the opportunity to work on this clean energy transition that's occurring in the state, the ambitious goals that California has, and really revolving around the role of the utility and to help accomplish all that. So it was just a real great opportunity to come to California. And in the 9.5 years I've been here, not a single boring moment at all. And so it's great to be here with you today.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for spending time. And let's just dig right into it then. I have a question that we'll kind of, maybe we could spend all day on, but hopefully we'll get through it in a few minutes here. The state of California has laid out some very ambitious plans and a goal to be carbon neutral by 2045. How can we achieve this? And what specifically is Southern California Edison doing to help the state meet these goals?
Yeah, really great question. And you're right, we could spend all day on that one topic. I think really what we've seen over the last 1.5 years with these extreme weather events underscore the importance of California's goals and the need for urgent action to address climate change. And so Southern California Edison is great to, really proud to be part of that solution. We put forward a paper, Pathway 2045, back in 2019, I think it was, that lays out a way for California to achieve its ambitious goals of carbon neutrality by 2045 in the most cost-effective way. And it starts with taking an economy-wide approach with leveraging clean energy, 100% clean energy by 2045, and then electrifying as many aspects of the economy as possible to leverage that clean energy. So, plug into the grid and use that clean energy. We're already on our way there. SCE, just a little over 50% of the electricity that we deliver to customers today is zero emission electricity. And we see our customers already benefiting by leveraging that with electric vehicles and increasing the electrification in buildings with HVAC systems and heating. So it's just and hot water. So all these things that are really an opportunity. And as we move towards 2030 and into 2045, it's really just expanding on that, leveraging the technology that we have today, solar, wind, battery energy storage, and then leveraging that into more homes and businesses with building electrification and transportation electrification.
Yes, well, a lot of stuff to cover there, but you did talk about customers and consumption. I'm curious, in the next 10 to 15 years, what will the future of energy consumption look like for businesses and individuals in California? And how do we get there?
Yeah, well, we do see as a result of the goals that California has that electricity consumption will increase significantly by 2045. In our 2045 white paper, it shows a 60% increase in electricity consumption from today to 2045, and that's driven, by the electrification of all these sectors of the economy, like transportation and buildings. And it also shows a 40% increase in peak load. As you know, the peak is the highest energy usage at one point in the day, and so we see an increase in that demand also 40% by 2045. Now, other energy use decreases significantly, right? Gasoline, heating oil, et cetera, all decrease by 2045. The energy share of wallet actually also decreases because even though the electricity bill will increase, the total cost that people are paying for energy will go down significantly by 2045.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And so just in follow-up to that, I think, given all that's going on, can grid connections keep up with the rapidly increasing demand?
Yeah, that's a really great question, given how much demand is expected to increase, but you can tell it's over a significant period of time as well. So we will do what we've done for almost 135 years and continue to plan ahead for what we see happening on the system. Mm-hmm. We put forward a different white paper in December of last year called Reimagining the Grid, and it talks about how the use of the grid will change substantially over the next 1.5 decades, 2 decades actually, and the way that we plan, engineer, design, and construct the grid will also change as a result of the demand for use of the system. But absolutely, we do see that grid connections will not be an issue. And I kind of liken it to the adoption of the cell phone, right? We didn't just in one day go from the rotary phone to the cell phone. So the first adopters were often big companies that people had cell phones, and then the prices drop. And as prices drop, it becomes something that's available to more and more customers. And so you see the adoption now of so many people having a cell phone and actually getting rid of their landlines. So I think what we see is the same type of transition of the technologies going first adopters, and then with the prices dropping, more and more people adopting. And we've seen that already, for instance, with rooftop solar. The price of rooftop solar has dropped so significantly over the last decade and a half that more and more customers we see adding rooftop solar.
Yeah. Well, in conjunction in relation to the demand question, I mean, talking about switching gears slightly to electric vehicles, and I know that Edison has a long history in working with electric vehicles and infrastructure. But let's talk about how Edison is working to create infrastructure at the pace and scale needed in California and across the country.
Yeah, that's a really great question. We're super excited about the opportunities in electric vehicles. And we do see not just the opportunity for business growth, of course, but really the opportunities that it has to improve the environment and the air quality in Southern California, given particularly the terrible air quality situation that we find ourselves in today. Transportation is the biggest driver of that, of our air quality challenges, no pun intended. And so going electric, going to zero emission transportation is a really huge benefit across the board in so many ways. We have had a long history in electric vehicle adoption and advocacy. We have a couple of projects actually in Orange County. One in our first Charge Ready pilot program, we worked with Hyundai to put in charging stations at their Fountain Valley facility. So over 100. I think it was almost 115 charging stations, of which 73 were funded by SCE's Charge Ready program. We also have another program in Orange County at the H Mart Shopping Center, where again, another part of our overall Charge Ready program, we worked with them to put in fast chargers, so direct current fast chargers, which can charge a vehicle in about 30 minutes, which is generally the time that people are in the grocery store. So it was a real great success story, I think, on for both those projects. And Edison today has the largest investor-owned utility electric vehicle charging infrastructure program in the country. And it spans not just the light duty passenger vehicles, but it covers the waterfront with medium and heavy duty vehicles as well. So we're very excited about the programs that we offer under the Charge Ready umbrella. And we've been working with other utilities across the country actually about our programs to educate them and hope that they can advocate for similar programs in their states.
Yeah, and Caroline, I think Sustain SoCal was involved with that project with Hyundai right out of the gate years ago, and we've been following it ever since. And I know that you've come into a couple different iterations of Charge Ready. You now have Charge Ready 2 and Charge Ready Transport. That you alluded to. Is there anything more you'd like to share on those two, the newer versions?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So under Charge Ready 2, which is the most recent program that the Commission approved for us, it's very exciting. It's a huge expansion of our charging infrastructure. So under the program, we plan to install about 38,000 charging infrastructure installations across the service area. About half of those will be in disadvantaged communities. We really, as I said, have real passion to make sure that all customers benefit from this clean energy transition, and that we don't leave any customers behind as California moves to a clean energy economy. So that's one huge opportunity that we see. Under that program, we're also going to be offering SCE owned and operated charging infrastructure in multi-unit dwellings. Under the pilot, where we saw a challenge was in that space, because we have building owners and building managers not wanting to take the opportunity to be responsible. So we're going to be offering an option where we would own and operate those charging stations for them and on behalf of their residents. So we see that as a great opportunity, because we do have a fair number of multi-unit housing developments within our service area, and want to make sure, again, no customer gets left behind and doesn't have an opportunity to adopt electric vehicles. Under the charge-ready transport, similar type of model where we put in charging infrastructure for the delivery trucks, for big heavy-duty vehicles that are, for instance, used at the Port of Long Beach. And so the cost is socialized across all of our customers, and the benefits accrue to the environment and to those customers.
Wonderful. I mean, you guys made great strides. Congratulations. But as we've been through these questions, we've been chatting here for a while. One thing that occurs to me and probably to our audience is that we kind of need all hands on deck to reach these goals set for 2045. Tell us a little bit about the nonprofit organization Veloz. I know you're the chair, and we have a couple of other speakers that are on this session. Let's see, I think it's David Hochschild and also Angelina Galateva, who are involved as well.
Yeah. Thanks for asking about that. Truly believe it is all hands on deck, and that's one thing that's so exciting about California is you do see from the governor's office through the agencies and through business and the private sector a real alignment around the vision that California has to achieve these really ambitious goals. Veloz is just one example of that. As you said, it's a nonprofit. David Hochschild is the chair of the public policy board, and Angelina Galateva is a member of that. It's an outgrowth of an initiative that started, over a decade ago, called the Plug-in Electric Vehicle Collaborative, which was just coming together of the vehicle manufacturers, the utilities, the charging companies, and government, just to talk about the opportunities around electric vehicle, the opportunities around electrical vehicle electrification, transportation electrification, and what steps we could all take in working together to advance that. Veloz then was created as a nonprofit to help spread the message and raise awareness around electric vehicles. That's one of the barriers that we see to adoption, is the lack of awareness, and Veloz helps with that. They created a website and a campaign called Electric for All. We're proud to be a funder of that. The website has various makes and models of the vehicles that are available to customers. If you put in your zip code, it brings up the programs that are available to you, including SCE's programs, but also the state incentives and federal. And so it's a really, and if there are any incentives that are being offered by the vehicle manufacturers themselves. So it's a really great website. I would encourage folks to go check it out. And the Electric for All campaign, advertising campaign, we've been really lucky to tap in some great talent, like former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. So really trying to capture the attention and eyeballs of viewers to learn about vehicles and learn about the opportunities to go electric. So it's been a really great experience so far to be a part of Veloz. It's something that I just became a part of a couple of years ago, and I just see such great opportunity for what the nonprofit and this organization can do going forward.
Sounds like an organization we should probably partner with here at Sustain SoCal as well. I mean, I'm relatively new to do that. Involved with it. Yeah. So that website is Veloz, VELOZ.org.
Yep.
Check it out. Looks really interesting. So, with that, I think, Kellen, we've kind of reached our allotted time, but thank you very, very much for joining us today. This has been a fantastic journey, and I really look forward to working with you in the future.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate being a part of this.
Thank you again. So, folks, don't go anywhere. We have one more segment you won't want to miss. Please stay tuned.
In honor of our 30th anniversary celebration of the OC Forum, we are raising $30,000 to establish an endowment fund. Our 30 for 30 fundraising campaign is looking for 30 generous sponsors to donate or pledge $1,000 to this fund. If you wish to contribute, please visit the link in the description below this video. I would also like to thank you for your continued support. These programs would simply not be possible without your contribution. Now please enjoy the rest of the show.
Welcome back to the final portion of the Future of Energy, presented by UCI and UCI Health and sponsored by Southern California Edison and SoCal Gas. I am pleased to welcome two guests to our final discussion. Angelina Gaiteva, Chair of the Board of Governors and the California Independent System Operator and Founder and Board President at Renewables 100 Policy Institute. And Debarshi Das, Executive Vice President at Consul and Founder and Principal at Arcasa. So guys, before we launch into our discussion today, would you both be kind enough to tell us a little bit about yourself? Angelina, starting with you.
Thank you very much, Scott. It's great to be here, and thank you for organizing such a wonderful event again. So I wear two hats. One is the chair of the California ISO, which is responsible for operating the grid in California and through the energy imbalance market, now 80% of the Greater West, which is very exciting because we are actually leading the charge for deep decarbonization and the electrification of everything. And because I'm also the founder of Renewables 100, I'm dedicated to ensuring the transition to 100% renewable energy in all sectors. So being able to be on the forefront of the energy revolution is really exciting. And I'm happy to be here and talk about it today.
We're very happy to have you, Angelina. Thank you. And Debarshi.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for having us today. Working at Consul, we're a building clean energy and energy efficiency consultancy and really pushing for accelerated decarbonization of the built environment. So we focus a lot on energy modeling, policy modeling, and technology modeling, and the convergence of the three as it supports the ecosystem. And with Arcasa supporting startups in clean tech specifically, getting through the multiple valleys of death on the way to commercialization.
Wonderful. Great, you guys. Well, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Lots to talk about. Starting off with a question that we're all sort of engaged in to some extent here in Orange County. What are some good examples of public-private partnerships to accelerate clean energy? Debarshi, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, a great example is, in fact, Sustain SoCal, and regionally, the funding that comes from the California Energy Commission through the EPIC program that funds innovation ecosystems and clusters throughout the state. So Sustain SoCal, Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, Cyclotron Road in the Bay Area, Blue Tech Valley through Northern Central California, Clean Tech San Diego down south. I think it's an excellent example of state funding that enables and pushes forward innovation, bringing together startups, corporate partners, the state and even local governments. So I think it's really enabled the acceleration of and advancement of clean tech and giving startups in particular resources that they wouldn't normally have access to and support that they really need in their growth phase.
Yeah, thank you for that, Debarshi. And Sustain SoCal, we have on Wednesday, tomorrow, actually, our annual transportation event we do in partnership with Lacey. So thank you for that. And Angelina?
That's exciting. Transportation is also a very big sector. As you know, 43% of California's greenhouse gas emissions come from the transportation sector. So deep decarbonization of the transportation sector is extremely important, and I'm happy to see infrastructure programs that support electric vehicle infrastructure, charging stations, and also support the development of medium and heavy duty electrification of the transportation sector, because that's the most difficult. And it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing other technologies apart from just battery technologies coming into the mix. Hopefully we can have fuel cells and hydrogen for heavy duty vehicles and other forms of transportation, such as marine transportation and ultimately aviation. So I'd like to see public support for those technologies for the private sector.
Agreed. I would as well. We've launched into a program with the Hollywood set, helping them with their heavy duty transportation issues, just in a collaborative measure. So another example. So thank you for that, guys. So maybe more to the meat of things, let's talk about job creation in this clean energy future. What are we doing to ensure that California attracts, develops, and retains a highly skilled workforce? And what skill sets or fields should young people today learn that would enable them to fill these jobs of the future? Maybe Angelina, start with you this time.
Well, we're looking at the future as highly digitized, diversified, and decarbonized. So we've got to focus in those areas and ensure that our plethoras of rules and regulations, whether it's AB 32 for deep greenhouse gas emission reductions or SB 100 for the 100% renewable energy portfolio, all the mandate no gas internal combustion engines after 2035, is something that we can actually accomplish. And now we have a new administration that is calling for accelerating those goals that are usually 2045 or 2050 for California and bringing them down to 2035. So ensuring that we can have 100% renewable energy across the board, and I have to brag that on April 24th, the ISO was able to operate at 94.5% renewable energy.
Congrats.
Diablo Canyon, our only remaining nuclear power plant, was down for maintenance. So we were operating on wind, solar, and hydro, and 87% of that was wind and solar. So it's really, really exciting. It can be done. And this is the future, the variable operation and technologies that allow us to handle the intermittency of renewables. Renewables are highly reliable, but intermittent. So handling the intermittency or ensuring that we have energy when there is no sun shining or there's no wind blowing. And then we bring in other technologies that are able to carry us to 3 or 4 days of no sunshine and no wind, and that our batteries can be charged and our system can function without having to have stranded assets like gas power plants remaining for no reason. And it's also very exciting to see that the LA Department of Water and Power is leading the charge to decarbonizing their centralized power stations with hydrogen as an advanced fuel. I'm very bullish on hydrogen as long as it's green hydrogen, and making sure that that's available for the transportation as well as for the generation sector. And it's a flexible fuel that also allows for storage. And as you know, UCI is a leader in that technology, and they're on the cutting edge. So I'm hoping to see great things coming out of the university in the very near future.
Yes, and Debarsha, your response.
Yeah, from a job creation, attraction, retention standpoint, there's some fundamentals that go beyond just the energy sector. Affordable housing, for example, right? If folks can't live where they want to work, then they will live elsewhere. Now, the benefit of technology, and especially as we've all learned in the last year and change, is you can be many places and do a lot of the same work. But I would say there is some lost value not being able to be in person. So I think not a challenge that any single person can solve, but being able to be affordably housed and have affordable housing options enables people to locate geographically where the work is. You know, California clearly a national and international leader in innovation, and has been and will continue to do so, but have to break down other barriers that are adjacent and tangent. From what types of jobs, I often tell students that I speak with who ask the same question: how do I get into clean tech? How do I get into clean energy? It's in fact a lot of the same skill sets that you may focus on in trades that you'd focus on in other sectors, whether they are industrial sectors or commercial sectors. It is STEM and STEAM because the functions are the same. In fact, what it really takes is the passion and the drive to affect the change that you want, and through the channel of clean tech and clean energy. So in fact, whether it's supply chain, engineering, coding, marketing, business development, all the functions are actually the same. It's just a matter of using that same skill set, applying it in a way that you want to make a change.
Right,
Yeah.
and just to add that while we're doing all this, as Debarsha pointed out, it's important to keep in mind the just transition, because just transition, environmental justice, is also extremely important in this context. Marginalized communities have been affected disproportionately. And as we move into this new green future, we've got to ensure that we do it with equity and justice for all. So bringing in young people from those territories into training programs, and ensuring that the people who are going to be entering this future workforce are well trained to be able to perform a myriad of technical tasks, because you're not only going to be installing solar panels, you're also going to be installing storage and electric vehicle charging stations and a microgrid, and maybe doing fuel cells. So someone who's comprehensively trained is going to be able to step into that new reality and be very, very flexible. So we need to ensure that that happens, and that we're looking at this from a systems approach, not just a piecemeal approach, because it's not just about putting a storage bank in one area and several solar panels in another. Everything is integrated. Distributed generation is increasingly going to be replacing centralized power stations. The building sector is going to be a part of the energy sector as well. So capturing the benefits of DRs and the technologies that customers are installing behind the meter now is going to be critical to operating the grid, but that also requires a well-trained workforce that understands the myriads of complexities it involves of just putting in a power wall, a Tesla power wall. It's not merely a Tesla power wall. It is now a part of a greater system that is going to be supporting the energy future that California is headed towards. So it's very exciting. It's tremendous opportunities for jobs, for employment, for economic development, and for keeping our cutting edge as the 5th largest economy in the world.
Great points, both of you guys. I mean, so, you know, for Sustain SoCal's standpoint, we also integrated an on-the-job training program. We also launched Engage, which is a class to help educate folks towards sustainability and clean tech jobs. So for all of those reasons, and, you know, Angelina, make a great point about the disadvantaged communities too. We had some of our speakers earlier in this program talking to their initiatives in that exact same area. So it seems like we're all at least moving in the right direction. So thank you both for that. Let's move on to question number 3. You both have experience in working with renewable energy for a range of organizations. What do you see as the biggest innovations in clean energy? Tough one. Let's go. Maybe Debarshi, take this one first.
I think the biggest innovations in the decade to come will actually come in controls and management of all the assets, all the DERs that Angelina mentioned, as well as inclusive of electric vehicles, because that is arguably the largest load growth sector that is upon us. And we've got all the resources available. In fact, and there are more and more assets coming online, distributed, even centralized. The key will be managing them. And it really centers around, in my opinion, the next set of fuel stations, which are buildings, right? Buildings and adjacent properties. Whether you've got on-site solar, community solar, distributed solar, and batteries, other assets, electric, continuing fuel conversion from gas to electric. There is a necessity to manage all of this intelligently, but not only that, to make it easy to make the transition both economically but also technologically, because the more complex any kind of technology deployment is, or the harder it is for a customer to adopt it, the less adoption there will be. So a lot of the tech solutions are, many exist today, many are continuing to come online, but managing them effectively is actually the key to be able to unlock it all.
Agreed. Angelina.
All right, so yeah, it's very important to have integration. I like to call it both horizontal and vertical. What Debarshi mentioned was being able to pull in vertically all the technologies that are going to be behind the meter and harness them to support the greater grid. But also horizontal integration is extremely important, ensuring that we are well interconnected with the rest of the United States and especially with the rest of the West. So horizontal integration also means regional integration and markets and transmission systems that are going to be planned in a comprehensive manner and not in 39 separate balancing authorities, which we've traditionally had in the West. So technological challenges are important, and we're going to be working through them, but let's not also forget that challenges on the regulatory side and challenges on the governance side are also very important in ensuring that we can all work together to make that reality happen. There's states across the West now that are following California's example to be 100% renewable. So we need to align our governance on a West-wide basis as well with respect to the grid to ensure that we have full integration and we can take full advantage of all the resources and the time difference in infrastructure that we have available to us through the West. Another great opportunity that I'm looking forward to is offshore wind. I think offshore wind will be a game changer. It's coming, and it coincides very nicely with the evening peak of the solar resources. So we will be able to rely on another renewable energy resource coming in and balancing solar and other technologies that give us power throughout the day. So I'm excited to see that happening too.
Yeah, and some recent legislation has just passed, or something has passed to enable that move forward, Angelina, correct?
Well, yes, it was an issue with the BLM that is now allowing the construction of the offshore wind turbines. And as you know, it was a technological challenge initially because our coast is pretty deep. So they cannot be installed in such a way as they do in the North Sea and in Europe, because there the seas are shallow. So we've got to have floating wind turbines that are 10 or 15 megawatts each off the California coast. It's a little bit challenging. It hasn't been done, but I'm excited because we've got wind producers in the queue at the ISO with projects ready to go. So we'll have something coming down the pipe in the next 3 to 4 years.
It is a very exciting time, and innovation, clean tech is booming, and
Yes.
everyone's taking notice. Investors have invested massively recently, and look to be continuing that trend. So very interesting times.
To add, and completely agreeing with Angelina, I think offshore wind in the western U.S. in addition to the East Coast will be, it has potential for major growth, not only just from power generation, because of course capacity factors are higher for offshore wind because the wind resource is cleaner, more unidirectional, higher speed, but the knock-on infrastructure that's needed, the port operations that need to be enhanced to be able to support blade transportation and shipping, the heavy lift vessels that need to be in place and in use to be able to do the installation and commissioning of offshore turbines. There's coming back to job creation. There is a lot of work and a lot of development that's needed to actually be able to support the transportation, installation, commissioning, and operations and maintenance of offshore. I was fortunate enough to be able to work in offshore wind in Europe, and as Angelina mentioned, the North Sea and the Baltic Sea have shallower depths, but once you get beyond 50 to 60 meters of depth, you essentially have to go floating, and floating has a ways to go as far as platform commercialization. So the tech exists. Again, it's a matter of tying also back to making sure the policies are enabling the acceleration of this, because as we all know, the clock is ticking. So I'm excited to see offshore wind develop in our coast.
That's really great. You're so lucky. And another benefit is that you could have the offshore wind interconnect directly into Diablo Canyon, which is being decommissioned, the last nuclear power station. And you already have the infrastructure that can be an off-taker for all the power coming in and distributed throughout the state and beyond. So yes, the synergies are there, the job opportunities are there, the technology is there. Now we have the regulatory framework there, and we should be ready to go.
Ready to go, hopefully, right? I mean, that's the general idea and the gist of all of this. Hopefully we'll get there, guys. Well, thank you for that. Moving to our final question here, guys, kind of a big one. Southern California experienced rolling blackouts last August. Some critics have blamed solar and wind energy. What is the cause, and what can we do to ensure reliability while pursuing our clean energy future? Angelina, why don't you go first?
You had to bring that, didn't you?
I had to. It's part of
it is part of it, yes. And I like to assure everyone it was not solar and wind that caused the rolling blackouts in California. It was several factors that happened, and they were unprecedented factors. I'd just like to point out that the way that California has operated the grid really meets all safety standards. But of course, reliability is primary importance to us, and resiliency is also extremely important for all of us living in California and any country that's trying to decarbonize. So we've got to make sure that as we transition to the green reality, we do it in a reliable and resilient way. Otherwise, we're going to be set back decades, and we're going to have to be making up that progress. What happened actually last summer was an unprecedented global warming effect that is supposed to happen every 30 years, but I suspect we'll be seeing it much more often, where we had a heat wave that basically covered the West. We had high temperatures in California, but more importantly, we had high temperatures in Oregon, we had high temperatures in Utah and in Las Vegas, which means that there was a scarcity of resources, and we couldn't really share resources as much as we wanted to throughout the West because everybody was short. We also had a power plant go out for unscheduled maintenance, and it wasn't a renewable power plant, it was a centralized power plant that went for unscheduled maintenance and didn't come back online. And that's always problematic when you've got shortages of energy that are not able to be brought up and brought up online quickly. We fixed that issue with having 2,000 megawatts more storage this summer, where last summer we only had 250 megawatts. Now we have 2,000 more megawatts. We've also increased operational margins from 15% to 17% because the peak was actually stronger and sharper than we expected. But the good news and the silver lining was that energy efficiency actually showed up. What we call the flex alerts, more than 4,000 megawatts of efficiency behind the meter showed up. So the potential is there. The building sector can actually play a huge role, as can all the customers. And as Devashi pointed out, the digitization of all the behind the meter technologies, pulling in the batteries from the electric cars. So more bi-directional charging, pulling in the storage from individual businesses and industrial complexes, as well as individual homes, and making sure that we can dispatch that energy and monetize it for customers, right? So that they get paid for supporting the grid and providing those services. That's very exciting to see, and that is something we're going to have more of this summer, because we've been working with the DER providers on a residential basis to make that happen. So yes, we did have some issues last summer, mostly driven by the strong heat wave, but we're prepared if such an occurrence were to occur again this year, that we'd be able to ride it out. We do have some challenges this year. We're in a drought. So hydro is down quite significantly, and we've got to figure out how we make that up. We've been there before. That was an acceleration of solar, and solar actually saved us at the last drought. We've got more solar on the grid coming now, so hopefully that will help as well. And then just pulling in all the other technologies and our regional integration with our regional partners so that we are better prepared to share more and more scarce resources throughout the West much more efficiently. It's all about optimizing optionalities on the grid.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, impressive what you guys have done in a year, Angelina.
Yes, we have. And working together with all the agencies, there's another kind of opportunity again for regulatory reform in California, where we really don't have an agency that carries the carrot or the stick of making sure that all the munis, the investor-owned utilities, and the CCAs, and all the behind-the-meter resources are coordinated and controlled in a better way so that they're visible and that they're dispatchable. We need to start thinking about how we do that, because energy, as I said, is no longer just the generation power plants and then the transmission lines. The energy sector is now the transportation sector and the building sector, and increasingly the industrial sector. So we've got to figure out how we have a more overarching and comprehensive view, and how we move all of these pieces together so that we can integrate them in the best fashion possible, because that'll provide us the most valuable and the lowest cost future from all points of view, economic as well as environmental, as well as job creation.
Yes, much more complex than it's ever been. Yeah, thank you, Angelina. How about you, Debarshi? What is your response?
Agree very much, and it comes back to the intelligent management of these diverse sets of resources, from distributed solar, batteries, the rise of electric vehicles. Key is resilience, right? That's what's at the core of the issue, and people need options. And without options, they will find other means, and sometimes more dangerous means, whether it's small gas and diesel generators at homes that are doing point source emissions, can be ignition sources themselves. People need resilience, and there historically hasn't been a value attributed to resilience, which I think is a gap in the ecosystem. If you can't assign value to it, the economy doesn't rally around it. So from a technological standpoint, an interesting development a lot of folks may have seen, to Angelina's point of grid interactive electric vehicles. You may have seen for example, the Ford F-150 electric being capable of exporting power, and I believe a partnership with Sunrun, the nation's largest residential solar developer, to come to market with a solution set that will enable vehicle to home backup power. So I think, that may quietly be disrupting the home battery market in the year or two to come. So I'm particularly fascinated to see that as a solution set come and become available to customers in a multi-use type of asset, which batteries already are. But hey, if you can also drive it and haul lumber with it, that's even more useful. So I'm keeping an eye on pathways for people to access more resilience, but it also then comes back to the point Angelina made as well, from the job training and education standpoint. Equitable access for low-income and disadvantaged groups to be able to participate in and benefit from a reliable, clean power grid. So we need to make sure that whatever solutions we design and we bring to market, we consider all Californians and access to all these solutions for them.
Right. And another quick point, a lot of the outages last summer were not due to reasons that we had shortages or the heat wave. We had one outage of 2 hours and one outage of 20 minutes totally due to that. But we had other outages, which were the power safety shutoffs, right? Those were due to fires. And there were many more of those that lasted for days in some territories. So again, to Devash's point about resiliency, making sure that those communities are able to island out, that we have microgrids that allow us to basically unplug from the power lines, which can cause a fire during high wind or very hot conditions, but the community still has energy and can operate independently. And again, you want them to do that with renewable technologies, with solar and with batteries, and with clean fuels. You don't want diesel gensets everywhere, which can be a problem, not only from an environmental point of view, but a safety point of view as well. So we've got our work cut out for us, but luckily those microgrids help us improve resiliency and reliability as well, because if you can shed load during those very high heat periods, just for grid reliability, that helps us as well. And you know, California is a global leader. Those microgrids can easily be transported into Africa, which is only 30 to 40% electrified, and electrified communities that probably wouldn't see energy for decades. So again, California know-how allowing other communities to leapfrog into a future they probably wouldn't otherwise see for decades. And this is a global environmental justice issue, which I believe we have a responsibility and a moral obligation to participate in. And I'm very glad that we do.
And I'm very glad that we do as well. And that's why we're having this conversation, you guys. And I think reliability, resiliency, those have been focuses for us here for some time, Debarshi and Angelina, and we've been talking about it collectively for some time, and clearly we need to keep talking about it. But this has been a fantastic conversation, you guys. Really appreciate your time today. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us today and your insights. It's always a great pleasure to speak with you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Pleasure.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We've covered a lot of ground with regard to the future of energy, and where it is clear that much has been achieved and that we are on a well-defined path forward, we have much to do to reach our goals. Thank you to our sponsors, UCI, UCI Health, Southern California Edison, and SoCalGas, for making the program possible at no cost to our viewers. For more information about this topic and our discussion, visit the OC Forum website in the description below. My name is Scott Kitcher, President and CEO of Sustain SoCal, and it has been my pleasure to moderate the future of energy. Thank you, and we hope to see you again soon.